This one's definitely for all those progression fantasy lit RPG people. I know you're out there. Hello and welcome to my channel. In this video we are going to be talking about Lightblade by Zamil Akhtar, which I'm probably pronouncing wrong, but I feel like that's at least maybe close. And this one was an SPSFC2 semi-finalist, and so that's why I gave this one a read. Now, like I said in the intro, I wouldn't really call this sci-fi, to be honest. This is very much lit RPG with progression fantasy elements. There's some sci-fi, I guess, elements to the premise, but this really didn't feel a whole lot like that. And so that's where this is one of those reviews where it's kind of hard for me to talk about, because I don't really like lit RPG progression fantasy very much. Exception being I really like Dungeon Crawler Carl, but like Cradle, for example, well-known and very, very popular progression fantasy. Haven't been a huge fan so far. I've tried the first couple of books and just kind of was like, eh. And that's kind of where I got here. So it gave me that similar feel that I know a lot of people really like, although it's not necessarily my thing. So that's kind of the intro is, I'm going to talk about some things that I thought worked well and didn't, but keep in mind that this is not really my thing, but I think that others who like that sort of thing would enjoy it a lot more than I did. So let's talk about Lightblade and what we have here. So our main character is Giosh, and he is basically, he's in a prison camp, and as something's going on with his memories, he seems to have lost some time and not be sure what's going on, like he's being led towards something. Now, the main premise with like the light blades and everything goes with people basically have crystals that they like put in a slot on their chest that allow them to use different kinds of light to do different sorts of things, like create light blades, heal people, and there are also like stones called dream stones that essentially put them into what is kind of like a simulation where they go to like a dream world. And the dream world too is where people go for either companionship or for like training simulations, basically, where they will go and like grind and level up over time, hence some of those elements. So like I said, that's kind of the base magic system has to do with that, and I would definitely call it a magic system because that's really what it is and what it feels like versus any sort of technology, although we have some like, you know, spaceships and whatnot, but it really feels more like a magic system. And there's also lots of things talked about, like different gods. You know, heck, there's a dragon even on the cover. And so there's all of these different kind of those fantasy elements. And you do get those kind of hallmark things with progression fantasy, you know, as well with lit RPG kind of mixed in. This really did feel like a mesh between the two. It didn't feel like a straight lit RPG. You definitely had those elements. It didn't feel like a straight progression fantasy, although it definitely had those elements as well. You know, like you'll see the character, you know, learning how to create some different sorts of weapons. You'll see the character going and grinding and like trying to learn and level up his skills with using light blades as well. You get the things you get in progression fantasy. We're like going against somebody who's much like higher leveled and more powerful than our main character is, and all of that kind of thing. And so those elements, which I think were done well, just not particularly my thing. I will mention that I did this one on audio, and the audio I thought was really good. The narrator for this, whom I should have looked up because I can't remember who it actually was now, but the narrator did a very good job on this one, and so that definitely helps. With a story like this, I feel like when it's like progression fantasy lit RPG, especially if it's something I'm not as into as a topic, a nice audio experience definitely helps. This is one I really had no problem getting through. I felt like I just blew right through. A lot of action and things that are being set up in the world they did find to be interesting overall. So like I said, it's Giosh, and he's in this camp, and he gets kind of pulled in to these big things happening. We have our villain who is doing some mysterious things for sure, and then he kind of falls in with these other characters where his goals are very different from theirs, but then kind of gets pulled in as the not even quite reluctant hero, but like the accidental type of hero type of role, where he gets really pulled in here even though he wasn't planning on it. He was going for different things. There's a lot of like discussion on what's real, what's not, in some little bits of philosophical oh boy, that was bad. Philosophical debate. Oof. I'm keeping it in too, so that was bad enough. I'd probably normally edit that out, but you know, hey, lets you know it's real. It's real thoughts. But there's a bit of that too, with talking with, like I said, the dream world versus the real world, that sort of thing. And so you do get more set up with the world. With it as well. And the characters, I think, kind of range. Like, I had no issues with the characters. I didn't feel super strongly for them as well. There was some, like, humor put in there with the dialogue that at some points felt a little bit forced. But overall, I thought it worked well. And once again, the audio delivery, I felt, made things work. So that's where, like I said, this is kind of a tough one for me because I thought it was pretty well written. And a solid story, solid world, just not really my thing. This is really one of those things where I didn't realize that's what this was. I tend to try to kind of go in blind. That way I don't have any preconceived notions with these. I mean, I do that anyway, but especially with SPSFC books, I tend to go in. And the thing is, this is out of like the other semifinalists I've read. Granted, it's a very low bar, but this is by far better than the others that I've read at this point, but I also don't really feel like it's a sci-fi story, and so that's where there's definitely gonna have to be some conversation here, because I don't think it makes sense to move forward a story that's not really, like, sci-fi isn't really the focus of it, and so that's kind of also where I'm torn. So this is definitely a wishy-washy review, and I will openly admit that. Like I said, it's kind of tough doing a review. I'm trying to be as objective as possible. With something like this, when it's not really my thing, and when it's also, I'm judging it for a competition, and it doesn't really seem to fit the competition's thing, so it's kind of the mix there. I ended up about a 3.5 on the rating here. Thought it was solid, well written, those types of things. Wasn't really for me, but I'm also not gonna rate it poorly because I'm like, I didn't like it. I didn't like it, not because it's bad, just because it's not really for me. So like I said, I think for those of you who like the progression fantasy, the LitRPG elements, if that's something you're really into, this is definitely one to check out, because it felt pretty comparable to some other things that I've tried in that vein that I also wasn't a huge fan of, that I know a lot of other people do like. So if that's your thing, I think definitely check this one out. It's one that I think you'll probably more likely than not end up enjoying, although it's something where it's hard for me to judge because of the fact that it's not really my thing. So, but that's kind of where I landed, and where I think other people will probably enjoy this a lot more than I did, just because, like I said, not really my thing. But those are kind of generally my thoughts on Lightblade. So let me know in the comments if you've read this one, or just like if you like that sort of that subgenre, like LitRPG progression fantasy. What are some things you like about it? If you are like me and aren't really huge into it, let's start the conversation and talk about that a little bit. And so find all about that in the comments. Always interested to hear. That's it for this one, though. Make sure to give the video a like if you enjoyed it. Check the link in the description, as always, for the Wizardly Duo Discord if you want to chat books, whether this book, other books, any books, really anything at all. It is a lot of fun. We'd love to have you. And, of course, if you enjoy my content, make sure to subscribe.